Today I'm visiting a very unusual place. In fact, I'm actually on the coast, and where I actually am is in the village of Dunwich in Suffolk, which in the medieval period was one of the largest ports in the area. And from where I'm currently standing, the original foreline, which has been washed away over centuries, used to extend over a mile out into the sea, and now the village is slowly disappearing at the rate of 1 metre of soil per year. The problem with Dunwich is that it's built on very sandy and light soil, and so it doesn't take much from the sea to actually gnaw away at it and gradually wear the place away, until today, which has now been reduced to just a few houses, a pub and a church, and also the remains of an old priory and partial remains of a leper colony. What I'm hopefully going to do today is to be able to visit all these places and be able to report back to you if A, I'm picking up any kind of psychic activity, and B, of course, a little bit more of the history that surrounds this very interesting place. I'm just reading some of the history of this fascinating place. It seemed their problem started in the year 1286 when the port, which had 3,000 people living here, was struck by an amazing storm which destroyed much of the front. And in fact, the people were forced to build a new town further inland, and the priory we're going to visit actually stood much closer to the coast, and that too was also built much further inland. And yet only a few hundred yards in from the present foreline is a leper colony, and that was built originally way out on the outskirts of the town because people obviously did not wish to have contact with lepers. And yet now the leper colony, or what's left of the leper colony, which is a dormitory, is actually fairly central to the village as it stands today. And as you look along this side of the car park where I'm actually parked now, you can see they've built huge revetments along here with huge concrete blocks to try and hold back stormwater, and yet, as the sign says, this place is still vulnerable to flooding. So there appears to be absolutely nothing that man can do to actually stop this decline. And the interesting thing about coastal drift is, as this sand is eroded and worn away, it ends up further down the coast, silting up other areas, and in effect creates new land. And Orford Ness at Orford, I think, is probably one of those areas which has benefited from the decline of Dunwich. And yet it's in a very beautiful location. On one extreme in the distance you can see the nuclear power station at Sizewell B, and far off in the opposite direction you can actually see what is the lighthouse at Southwold. So it is a place that's well worth visiting. There is a lot of countryside here. It's in a national park area. The people here, of course, are quite friendly because their whole income is derived mostly from tourism, just very little from fishing, from the few boats that I've actually seen on the foreshore. But the history of which remains today is just as fascinating, and I'm looking forward to it. Once I've had my traditional English cuppa, I have to have a cuppa, and then I will continue on with the visit and the subsequent investigation later on tonight. Thanks. I'm actually standing inside the medieval leper chapel of the former leper colony of the Hospital of St James, which was built by Dunwich in the 11th or 12th century. And leprosy was a disease, a terrible disease, which was believed to have been brought back to the UK by the Crusading Knights. And this disease rapidly spread across the country, leaving many people affected and afflicted by it. It's kind of ironic to think that this chapel has survived where the rest of the town has disappeared into the sea, and even escaped the clutches of Henry VIII on the dissolution of the monasteries in the Catholic Church in England. There are a number of graves inside the chapel. It's such a beautiful ruin and so historic. The local ghost legend attached to this building is that on some nights people have seen shadows going across the walls, and it rather reminds me of the ancient church which we visited a short while ago and captured very similar shadows moving across the wall of the building. All that's left of the chapel today is just the walls, literally. It has a rounded end and straight walls with an opening at the far end but no roof. And yet, wandering inside the chapel, I've picked up a tremendous energy all around me, very powerful. And the energy that permeates from the walls and from the ground, it's just overpowering. It's just like standing in front of an electric fire, except there's no heat, but you can feel the energy emanating from the ground. I think this is the chancel end of the chapel, and it's leaving me feeling a little bit lightheaded, to say the very least. Although this is a very peaceful area, it does feel quite troubled in here. So if I can actually come inside tonight and the gate isn't locked, I will inspect it and hopefully may be able to share something with you on camera. Something that, if you like, supports the local legends that are attached to this beautiful remains of the old leprosy chapel. I've eventually arrived at Greyfriars Priory. What's left of what was once a magnificent religious building was actually a rebuild from the 13th century, I believe. The original structure was much further out, and had it been left, it would have been under at least 50 feet of water by now. But they had the foresight, the Franciscans that run this particular priory, to re-erect it much further inland. And so just a few remnants of the original structure have survived, but what is left gives a clear indication of the architectural beauty of this particular structure. And I've only just wandered down here, and already I've picked up quite strong energy. If I can just indicate, just around here, and on this wall for some weird reason. There's still some interesting features of the original structure left. Access was quite easy. It was just through a side gate, and if it's possible tonight I will call back here probably for about half an hour to an hour, depending on how active it's likely to be. The alleged ghostly sightings here have been of monks, which is fair to say is going to be probably a good guess, bearing in mind that this was used by friars. It was called Greyfriars because the original Franciscans wore a grey-browny habit, and that's how the name was actually coined for this particular structure. But probably a lot less than the Leper Chapel that we just went to a short while ago. But even so, what is here is interesting, and I hope you enjoy the shots that I've taken for you. But for sure, there is an activity, so I will try and get back here tonight. Touch wood. There's a farm next door, so I've got to be careful and see what type of activity that I can pick up. But yeah, it could be an interesting one. Okay, I've arrived back at Greyfriars. It's just on the edge of being dark. I must be honest, I think I got sunstroke today being out in the sun. Don't feel too good, but I'm going to push on and see what I can pick up. It's very quiet here. I've just walked through the haunted woods, and the only thing I actually saw there were a deer and a rabbit and a hare, I think. But I'm actually in the ruins now. As you can see, partly, and I'm going to hang around here for about half an hour and then I'm going to move on. But I'm not really feeling much at the moment, but then to be fair, I'm not really feeling 100%. I've spent a good 8 hours in the sun and not having such a thick thatch as I used to. I think the sun's got to me a little bit, but I've had 3 or 4 coffees in the pub and taken some Panadol, so hopefully that will keep me together for the next half an hour. If I'm up to it, then I will go down to the Leper Chapel, but I'm not really feeling much, as I've said, and all I can hear at the moment is the sound of the sea, because the sea is just literally about a 5-minute walk from where I am. I've got night shot mode on, but it's certainly getting dark. Just the odd insects at the moment. I'm hoping I might pick up some EVP. I've already opened up and I've asked for their blessings. This is the wall that I can pick up a lot of energy from. I'm going to sit around the corner and just chill out for a minute. As you can see, it's dusk at the moment. The infrared on its own looks very bright. No doubt you can hear the sea in the background. It almost feels as though I'm actually on the coast. Okay, I'm going to go off camera for a few minutes until it gets a little bit darker and then try again. I'm sure a couple of minutes ago I heard a voice, amongst the sound of the sea in the background. More like a low grunt. And I had a spiritual impression of a man in the 18th century, skinny little man, wearing a really tatty tricorn hat, a black jacket and breeches. But that was about it really. I'm starting to sense the presence of others around me. I've got to stand one way because the wind is blowing everything out. Just beyond the ridge of those trees is the sea. So it can't be too many years before it reaches the remains of the Greyfriars. Oh, it's going out of focus big time. Just here mostly. Just okay, I'll keep it on that spot. Move it over. Here I didn't get any problems, but here it struggled. It's okay now though. Just heard a voice behind me. I can still hear voices in the sound of the wind and the sea. Okay, the K2 is not reacting to anything. I'm just going to wander around the building. Okay, I'm standing inside an arch and there is no reactive light. Just then I saw a flash of energy. It's just like a yellow flash of light that went up from the corner of that wall where it comes together, where the two walls meet. Saw the flash going up diagonally. Had a slight reaction on the K2. It went to 2 lights, then came off. I think what I'm going to do now is leave the site and go down to the Leper Colony building. But to reiterate what I said earlier, I'm going to have to walk in there very quietly and say hardly anything, because of the fact that there is a house rather, at the end of the chapel in the chancel area. And their front door is literally a few feet away, probably about 1.5 meters. Just heard a voice again. I think this site has its moments, but I don't think today is going to be one of those moments, to be honest. I'm having to bend down a little bit because the wall is not very high. Yeah, I can feel an energy around here, but as I've said, it's far too windy and there's too much background noise from the sea. But the one thing that does strike me about this place is every so often I can hear somebody's voice, and it's always in a particular area. In fact, where I'm actually standing, I'm on the end wall of the corner section of the wall that I showed you earlier, which I indicated on the other side earlier today is the seat of a lot of energy. But that is the only part of the entire structure that I'm actually feeling anything, and that's where, of course, I saw the light. Strange, isn't it? So what I'm going to do now is pack the camera away, turn it off, make my way out quietly. I'm not going to take any photographs here because I don't want to attract attention, and make my way down to St James's Church, where the remains of the Leper Chapel are. But as I said, I'm going to have to be very, very quiet there, very quiet. It's right next to a house. So let's see how we get on there. Okay, I'm at St James's Church, and as you can see, the site is lit up like a Christmas tree, which may not be good for what I want to do, to sit there quietly. So I'm just going to pop in and probably come straight out again. Okay, as you can see, I'm now inside the chapel. The lights are at maximum intensity, so I sit here quietly and hope that we can get some shadows or perhaps some UVP. That's where the energy is there.
After spending 40 minutes here, I could not, and despite the earlier daytime visit, pick up any interesting activity whatsoever, and so reluctantly and late in the night I left to return to my car.
Well, I carried out my pledge. I visited Greyfriars and also the Leper Chapel at St James's. It's just a pity that I was exposed to the sun today, because it's certainly affecting me at the moment. As I said earlier, I've now got a 2-hour drive. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we've got some good EVP. I certainly didn't see anything on the camera that was unexplained. If I go back to Greyfriars, it was just mostly the presence of quite strong energy around that part of the structure that I indicated to you, and I saw the flash of energy, but I didn't see anything on camera which could be attributable to spiritual activity. Funny enough, when I decided to leave the site, as I actually left, 2 cars pulled up. I'm not sure who they were, but I went out through the main gate, smiled and wandered back to my car, and then drove straight down to the chapel. Now got back to my car, and I'm now planning for the long drive back to Essex. Something I'm not looking forward to, but on the other side of the coin, I will be glad to get back home, because I could really do with a good night's sleep. I'm feeling really terrible at the moment. But overall today it's been very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the most important thing, of course, is that I hope that you've enjoyed the experience with me also, and that I have actually got something to share with you other than the beautiful vistas of today and the locations, but also hopefully some EVP or perhaps some other type of anomaly. Anyway, I'll say thank you to you and good night, and I will speak to you very soon. Take care.